Welcome to the usability meeting for Friday, November 13th, 2020. Present are me, Benji Fisher, Jennifer Hodgson, Thomas Howell, and Angie Byron, or WebCheck. And I guess we were hoping to talk about an issue with the Olivero theme, but I don't see anyone ready to present that. So I guess let's go to the wording issue that Jennifer wanted to talk about, which is issue 2888657. It's a meta issue, less confusing and more consistent wording needed in module/theme, add, install, update. And I guess I will share my screen so that we
I
can
could
look
share
at
mine
that
if you
issue.
prefer.
I'm happy to do it.
Okay.
Oh, and it looks like we just got Christina Chumias. Sabrina, welcome. We're just getting started. So I hope you now see the window I intended.
Yep.
Okay. Jennifer, want to walk us through this?
Okay. So the problem here, the main problem here that I originally identified at some point and other people had as well, is that if you go to the extend page, admin/modules, or also on the admin themes page, the appearance page, there's a button at the top that says install new module. And then there's a button down at the bottom that says install, and they mean completely different things, even though they both say install. So the top button, install new module, is what takes you to another page where you can upload files, basically. So you can paste in a URL of a tarball from Drupal.org, and it will upload like the token module from Drupal.org. And that's called installing. But and down at the bottom, that install button is what actually turns the module on. We ran into this in the user guide because we're trying to document how to do this process of downloading a module from Drupal.org and turning it on. And there's more wording problems, because after you've installed the module, it says, you just installed the module, would you like to enable it? And then you go back to this page and you have to install it and not enable it. So there's inconsistent wording all over the place. And there are words, the terms are install, enable, and install and enable are kind of used interchangeably now, because we can't disable, we can only install and uninstall. In Drupal 7, we had a separate process that was disable, that left everything there, but in the database, anyway. So anyway, the thing is, for me, the big issue was we need the wording to be consistent. If we use the word install, we should use the word install. The opposite of that should be uninstall. And we shouldn't use the same word to mean both turn the module on and off versus uploading files. So we discussed this back in July at one meeting at least, and then someone else kind of came to the meeting and decided that we really ought to change the whole workflow. And I decided that was kind of impossible, and I stopped coming to the meetings. And so I'm not really sure what happened. And I would like to kind of go back to something that we could do, which is change some words on 4 or 5 different pages and make the wording consistent. Is that a good enough summary? And I guess there's a comment on this issue down, the last comment on this meta issue here is from Roy, and he said, yeah, let's call adding the files add instead of install, and do that as a first step. So, and we were also discussing whether we should call turning modules on and off enable, disable versus install, uninstall. That's kind of that's kind of a change, a big change. And so
I remember
it could be activate too. Anyway,
I remember a discussion several years ago when Drupal 8 was first introduced because of the shift away from the enable disable. 'Cause I think I mean, Angie, you probably remember better than I do, but there was a lot of confusion in the community because enable disable, when it left everything in the database, and there were problems with how configuration management was handled in Drupal 8, and that's why the concept of disabling was removed pretty early on in Drupal 8.
Right.
So I know that one of the challenges I had early on was Drush is also very important in this language. So this calls out the interface through the web UI, but we need to make certain that if we do make any changes, that there's corresponding changes to Drush and the language inside Drush. So not just like the terms or the commands, but also the descriptions of those commands. So yeah, that's the thing I'd add on. I agree. This is
I'm
horribly
pretty
confusing.
sure Drush still says enable. The Drush command to turn on a module in Drupal 8 is still PM enable, even though the UI in Drupal 8 itself is install.
It's been too long since I've used it.
Well, we can go to drush.org and look at the command list.
But the opposite command is PM uninstall.
Yeah.
Right. So, but that's a Drush UI problem. That they're not using, we would like the two words for turning on and off the module to actually be, as Benji put it earlier before the meeting started, antonyms of each other. So we don't want to use enable uninstall. We'd like to use enable disable or install uninstall or something. Let's see. So the command is PM :enable to turn it on and PM :uninstall to turn it off.
That's what I thought.
And I don't know, do they have a command to download a module from Drupal.org?
They used to. I don't know whether they still do in current versions, since we encourage everyone to use Composer. But if they do,
maybe they don't.
It would still be in the PM namespace, I think, download or short version DL.
I'll paste the link to the commands I'm looking at in the chat if I can find the chat again.
So perhaps by the end of this meeting, we can agree to Roy's suggestion to use add as a first step. But he also put in this spreadsheet that I'd like to have a look at.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't see a command to download a module. I think the point is if you're using the command line, you should use Composer to download the files.
That seems reasonable. So he has links to a couple of issues. Is one of those the issue he just came from? I think it is. Yes, 2888657.
Okay, so he's proposing adding is when you upload the files, which is currently called install, which we don't want. And then it becomes becomes available, and then enable so that it becomes enabled, or maybe install so it becomes installed. Update. Oh yeah, this is because, okay. Delete the data is uninstall. This doesn't look consistent.
So looking at these actions, I would pair add with delete files, though I'd probably call it add and remove. And I see that delete files does not actually exist, which we know. But that would be the pair or the antonyms of add and remove.
Right.
Because you're basically adding files and removing files.
Right.
Then enable versus install. The problem I have with the word enable is that enable doesn't really tell the user that they're actually like changing the state of the database, but it probably doesn't matter. Um, it's just if we put in enable, then the word install really goes away entirely.
Yeah, I think when you are taking a module away from being available, I think the word uninstall there makes a lot of sense because you are removing data. And I don't think disable doesn't convey that. So I think the word uninstall is good. Therefore, we should use install for the process of turning it on.
That would be my conclusion as well. So I would use add and remove and install and uninstall, and I'd probably drop enable from, I would put a recommendation to the Drush team to change enable to like,
Install.
yeah, yes. um, and then we just become consistent, and then maybe for a period of time, like we don't deprecate it immediately. We basically point enable, throw a message, yada yada yada. But I just, I know, for me it's really confusing whenever there is a delta or a difference between how the UI operates and how the command line, especially in the world where we want Composer to be used, because Composer goes hand in hand with other CLI tools.
Well, that's another point because on the Composer command line, if you want to add files, you do Composer install
Require.
or Composer require, right? Well, and then Composer install means add all the files that you define. So that's going to be inconsistent.
But we don't control the Composer space. We only really control the Drush space. And I shouldn't say we.
No,
but
that's true. But we could make our terminology consistent with it since we don't have any way to change it.
valid point.
I guess if we could think of a different pair of words besides install and uninstall for turning the module on and off and having its data.
Why not turn on and turn off?
Well, but because
Yeah.
it's also removing all the data.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah.
Benji, opinions?
I'm leaning towards install and uninstall
Yeah.
and add and remove. Yeah, as you said, there is no remove functionality in Drupal, but as Jennifer is well aware, we do have documentation.
Right.
So I would like to use those pairs consistently.
I'm betting as a short-term fix, you could add in a button that said remove, and then when you clicked it, it sent you, it would say like, follow these
Go to this
instructions
place
on
in your
removing
file
things.
space.
Yeah, but it would give you those direct instructions in place. So
I don't think I want to do that.
No, I don't think so either.
Oh, there's another issue linked here. The second issue was the one we were looking at before.
Right, but the other linked issue is 3162049, better wording of module lifecycle admin pages.
Right.
This is in the ideas issue queue. I think
Right.
I think this was created after our discussions
Yes.
this past summer. And it looks as though there's discussion of the paths to use, and that's clearly something else that would benefit from being more consistent, but I think we want to limit our scope for today's discussion.
Yeah, I think changing paths is that sounds like a backwards compatibility issue and all kinds of things. And my guess is that if we can limit ourselves to just changing the wording so the UI is consistent, even if the URLs aren't totally consistent with that, I think we're going to be better off. So there's some other things on that first issue that we were looking at. that I guess we need to think about whether we use the word download. So if you scroll back up to the issue summary in the issue you're looking at there on 288-68587, item 2, there's wording that says download additional contributed modules, and this maybe should be saying add also, or add more contributed modules to extend your site's functionality. I just think, and now it's saying to review and install available updates. I don't think we want to use the word install there either. I'm just saying, we probably don't want to talk about installing updates. We want to just talk about updating. We need to use consistent verbs. So I think it's not that hard to make a patch that makes all the wording consistent. It'd be, there'd be probably 20 or 25 different changes to UI, but they'd be like 3 words each at the most. And I'm happy to make a patch and see if we can get things more consistent. So I guess the question is, we've got this meta issue and we've got about 10 child issues that all talk about various aspects of this. My inclination is to kind of make a patch on the meta issue that does all of it at once and then close all the child issues as duplicates. Does that make sense to people?
It sounds efficient.
I don't want to be reviewing 10 different issues because they won't be, if they get committed at different times, they won't be consistent. The wording won't be consistent.
So not all of them. So this child issue, after installing a theme, display a link to install another theme. That would not be
right. Yeah, not all of them are duplicates. I didn't mean to. Yeah, but just the ones that say make the wording on the page more clear and don't have. Oh, there's another one. That first child issue that says install button at admin install should be labeled continue. That's as you're kind of clicking through the process of adding modules, at some point there's another install button that needs to kind of just say continue versus saying install, because that's item 4 in the meta issue. It's right down at the bottom of your screen. It shows a screenshot of this. So after clicking install new module, you get to this page that says you have to either install from a URL or upload a tarball, and then there's another install button that probably needs to say continue. That was that issue. And then if you scroll down, item 5 is what happens next. So you get this message that's saying installation was completed successfully. And then you have a link to enable newly added modules. And then you go back to that takes you back to admin modules and where you can install them. So, and also that link says enable newly added modules, but it doesn't actually do the enabling. It only takes you back to admin/modules where you can do the installation. So anyway. And then item 6 is the same thing for themes, except the next steps there. Oh, that's item 6 is that other child issue where under next steps, they don't even have a link to install another theme, which would be add another theme. It's not consistent between the two. I don't know that that's that important though, because I think for the most part, you're only installing one theme at a time. Like, your site doesn't need to have 10 themes, but it does need to have 10 modules. So
yes.
I
remember discussing that issue and the
love
related one for
CTA.
modules.
I think we should improve the installation page with this CTA. This enable one, the design, I like it.
Say again?
I was saying that I really like this design for the CTA. We should integrate that on the new UI.
I'm not
joking. Sure. I was just joking.
Oh, okay.
about this enable
Yeah.
the design.
Okay, and then on number 7, there's one more thing. One more thing, of course. After you actually install modules, you get a message on the, your success message says that module token or whatever has been enabled instead of saying has been installed, which is fun. You just clicked. This is independent of whether you just uploaded the files or whatever, but even if you install a core module, it says the module's been enabled. So.
So looking at all these things, I would suggest starting small and hoping to build up a little bit of momentum. So I would start just by making add and remove in
Okay.
user interface consistent, and then making corresponding documentation updates. And then as a second step, change to install and uninstall consistently.
Okay, so you think those should be 2 separate issues?
I think so, just because that second one is a little, well, 5 times more complicated. Just looking at the things you've listed here in this meta issue. And I would like to see some progress in the near term.
Okay,
and
maybe
I
I'll
think
pick one of the child issues then that just talks about the adding of files UI and work on that part there. And then we can go back and find a different child issue to work on the other parts.
I think that's a good plan. Angie, do you have an opinion on whether this can be done in a minor release or whether we're now talking about Drupal 10?
I feel like it could be done in a minor release because we're talking string changes, not like a BC break. Like there's no API. I guess if you were going to rename all the functions as well to like install, enable, whatever, like those kinds of things, that would be a BC break and that would be a Drupal 10 thing. But if you're just talking about changing the user interface strings in places, that should be doable in a minor release. Let me make sure.
Come to think of it, when you bring that up, I think that was another thing that derailed the issue back in July was that if we do this in the UI, then the API functions won't be consistent with the UI.
Yeah. So what? I don't know.
That's kind of how I feel.
Yeah.
Well, can we create a series of like break it down into 3 separate issues? So there's child issues here, but one issue would be to fix the URLs, and that would be part of Drupal 10. And the second one would be to fix the functions of API. That would be part of Drupal 10. And the first one is the ones that already exist here. So that way we're acknowledging that we want to change and fix those things for consistency in Drupal 10, but the actual like short-term benefits far outweigh the need to change the wording at the same time as API and URL.
We should be able to do those in 9 just with BC layers that can be removed in 10.
Right.
Then we could go about it that way. I guess I agree that this is something that's probably bothered me for many, many years as well. And so it would be nice to get working on it. I think that the add remove, so the file related commands are easier and can be isolated, but I do agree with Jennifer that just working on one of the install children at a time seems kind of counterintuitive, because then you'd have this progressively like dissociated, like once we start changing install, we need to do it universally, but starting small with the add remove and fixing that, you could do that in isolation. And so you're decoupling the 2 word pairs and doing the first one as a proof of concept to make certain that we're comfortable with the direction the patch takes.
Okay. I'm just making, so here's then what I'm just made some notes on paper, which I'll put into the issue in a second. I still use paper here. So our first issue is going to be then fix the UI for uploading files for modules and themes to use add as the verb. The second issue would be fix the UI for turning modules and themes on and off to use the verb install and uninstall consistently and not enable and disable. The third thing would be to make sure we are not using the word install for other things like updates. Maybe that would be part of number 2. But anyway, possibly a separate issue, but I think we can make it as part of number 2 because I think there's just the things that say install updates and we would just say update as that verb. The fourth thing would be to make the URLs consistent in all of that. And that would be a bigger change that probably we wouldn't do in a minor release, I guess. I don't know. And then the fifth thing would be to make the API consistent with all of that. The API functions consistent.
That sounds good. I would just want to add to the first task that you will probably be changing some interface text to say remove as the opposite of add.
Okay. I don't know if we have any UI about that, but yeah, so I'll put that in as a note anyway, that if we want to talk about it, to talk about remove. Okay. I think my number 2 and my number 3, number 2 then was change the UI for turning on and off modules and themes to consistently say install and uninstall for the verb. That as part of that, we should also make sure that we're not using the word, well, I don't know, I guess it's a separate issue. Don't use the word install for other things like updates. We don't want to talk about installing updates. I think we want to just talk about updating. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, yes.
Okay. All right, well, I'll put a note on I will make a note of this on the meta issue that we started talking about, 2888657, about our plan. And I'm going to see if I can figure out suitable child issues for each of these steps. And if not, I'll create them. And I'll see if I can consolidate the other child issues. Like if some of them are actually duplicates of one of those steps, I will mark those particular child issues as duplicates of the ones we decided to use, and request that certain people get credited or whatever that worked on the other child issues. Okay, and the only other, let's see, that would leave, I'm trying to figure out if there's anything else that's on this meta issue that wasn't covered. Okay, there's a little item 3 that says that you can download contributed modules, but actually it also works for custom modules. That's just a little minor thing. So I don't know if I could possibly change that at the same time, but we could just leave it as a separate issue. I don't know.
It looks to me like a separate issue.
Okay. And then there's that one number 6 where you don't have, oh no, sorry. The number 6 is actually 2 parts. The first part is that it says install instead of enable or whatever. The second part was there's no link to upload another theme. I don't think we want to tackle that in this process at all.
I agree.
So just kind of leave it as related, but not as something we're going to fix here. And then, okay, so I think, oh yeah, number 8 is the paths. Okay, yeah, I think this is all of the things we need to cover, I think, are covered then.
And I think we can actually, even the path changes could have a BC layer, so potentially could be done in a minor release, because you can always have, the old paths redirecting or just still loading the same page, but perhaps redirecting would be better, and then just remove those redirects in Drupal 10. So I think potentially even the path changes could be done in a minor.
Okay. It's definitely a bigger change than just changing a bit of UI text.
Yep.
Yeah, it's bothered me for a long time that the paths and the breadcrumbs and so on are so different in the install a module process from install a theme process.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know if we actually even have a child issue right now about the URLs, but oh yeah, that's number 8, I think. Well, we can expand number 8, number 8's issue there that says loading a theme into the file system has an inconsistent path, and make an issue that says, make that into all the paths should be consistent with all the UIs.
Yeah.
So, but I think we should postpone doing any of that until we get the UI consistent with itself. Okay, I will update the issue and try to wrangle, remove some of the duplicates and things like that. Thanks.
Thank you. This is a big, complicated mess of things that are actually fairly easy to implement.
I think so. It's not that
So-
hard to change UI text.
So the hard part here is managing the mishmash of ideas and then getting the appropriate buy-in. So thanks for working on both pieces of that.
Yeah. All right, on to whatever else.
I didn't notice when Aaron and Gabor joined us, but thank you both for joining the meeting. Do you have any other issues that you'd like to discuss? Or any of the people who are already on the meeting? So hearing no replies, I guess we will end this meeting 15 minutes early. Thank you all for coming, and I guess we will follow up on this in the future. And Jennifer, thanks again for bringing this up and offering to wrangle these cats for us.
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer.
Thanks for the discussion.
You're welcome. And till next week then. Bye.
All right. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Ty.